Hey, I'm so glad that you're here. You're interested in studying the Bible. This is a 30-day series on getting an overview from Genesis to Revelation. Let's just face it, the Bible is a big book. It's a daunting book. There's a lot of confusing parts. And so the idea behind this is I'm just going to walk you through in a daily video part of the reading plan. The reading plan, if you haven't had a chance to get it, you'll find it in the description below or in the comments below if you're on Facebook, and you'll be able to access it there. And I would encourage you to read along. Now, today's is the longest by far of any of the assigned readings. It's Genesis 1 and 2. So we won't read it all together, but we'll read parts of it, and I'll talk you through some of the important things here. But the idea is these videos are short, and you will just get a good overview of the Bible as you're reading through the plan. So the first thing we want to note here is in the beginning. There's no real time frame other than just simply the beginning. What you need to know as you're reading along the Bible is this language gets picked up again and again. So when you get to John's Gospel, for example, that's there. But notice we're told who the subject of all of creation is, and that's God. God created the heavens. That's a pretty awful line. The heavens, that's an even worse one, and the earth. So that's kind of the heavens and the earth as the typical way the Bible describes the world we live in. You can make all sorts of elaborate arguments about what the heavens refer to and the earth refer to. Here it seems to just simply refer to the sky above and the earth below. You could make arguments for more, but we won't go into that. The earth was without form and void, meaning it was not established at this point, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering, get a straight line there, over the face of the waters. Notice this is the Spirit of God. So there's a couple of things going on here that are really important. One, the world is without form and void, meaning there's a lot of chaos in the world. We could just write chaos there. There's a lot of chaos, and we even see that in darkness over the face of the deep. As you're reading the Old Testament, you'll realize that the waters are a scary place where things lurk that we don't understand, mysterious things. And God is here in this passage subduing them. This is actually really significant for understanding the world of the Bible. All of the other gods and things in the ancient Near East wouldn't have had this sort of power. This is God asserting, the one true God, asserting his authority over all of those things. And God speaks simply to create. His word is sufficient to create. He doesn't need to find materials or anything like that. The Genesis account assumes that God creates out of nothing. Of course, the phrase there, the Latin phrase is ex nihilo. God creates from nothing. As we go along here in Genesis, God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from darkness. This good phrase will be important in just a minute. As we continue, there was evening and there was morning the first day. So that's going to be a way of wrapping up all the days of creation. God's going to look at it and say it's good, and then he's going to say there was evening and there was morning the first day. Now, I'm not going to go through all the days of creation. You can read that for yourself as you're going along and doing this plan. But notice the repetition here. And we could talk about the significance of the days and things like that. And I'm happy to answer those questions. Just leave a comment somewhere on one of the videos, and I'll make another video and go into some more detail if necessary. So here we have in verse 21, God creating the great sea creatures and every living creature. So this is the first time he begins to create life. And he says to them in verse 22, be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas and let birds multiply on earth. And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. And then there are some more creatures made. And God saw that it was good. But here's the one we need to look at now, and that's in verse 26, as God creates mankind. Then God said, let us make man. This is the word Adam, the Hebrew word Adam. Let us make man. You can see it over here in the Hebrew text maybe, Adam. Let us make man in our image. Now, by the way, Adam is Adam. That is a comprehensive term. It's a generic term. It doesn't necessarily refer to a male or by contrast, a female. It just refers to a generic man. So that's why you hear me saying mankind or humankind. Either of those would be fine. And this has always puzzled commentators. Of course, Christians have seen an early indication of the Trinity in our image after our likeness. Lots of arguments about that, lots of interesting discussion about that. And let them have, and here's dominion over. So they are to rule or be kings. The good word here is viceroy. They are to be the ambassadors of God to creation. Because they're made in his image, they are reflecting his image to the rest of creation. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So notice the image of God is not just restricted to men or anything like that. And then verse 28. Well, there's a lot of discussion about what it means to be made in the image of God. Is it some sort of look? Is it the rational capabilities? Is it wisdom? Those are all good options. Is it relationship? That's another good one that can be argued from the text. But there's also this functional one. God said to them, here's what they're to do: be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over. So be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over. This is what it means to be functionally made in the image of God. This is unique to humans. We are to be fruitful, we are to multiply, we are to fill the earth. This word subdue is really not a great translation. The idea is to cultivate or to tend to or to exercise mastery over, as one scholar has put it, and have dominion over. Again, that goes back to that kingdom idea that we are extending God's kingdom to this world. Sometimes people refer to this whole section as the creation mandate. There are arguments about whether or not it's binding today. It appears that it would be binding in how we care for creation and how we think about creation today. So that's all there in verse 28. And then as we go along, the creation wraps up. We're told about God providing for his creation, and that's good, and how he cares for them. And that was evening, morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. And because of that, he blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all his work that he had done in creation. Maybe we'll just take note here, because this will be important later in the Bible when you get the emphasis on Sabbath. This is the verb for Sabbath. This is Shabbat, which is Shabbat is Sabbath. So Sabbath means to rest, and that's on the seventh day in the Jewish calendar. That would be Friday evening, right? Remember the days, the seventh day from evening to morning, the seventh day. So Friday evening to Sunday evening would be Shabbat, the time to rest, be Sabbath. And it's patterned here in the creation narrative. Then in Genesis 2, we get something of a different creation story. I don't think they're at odds with one another, but I think what they're telling us is that these two accounts help us comprehend to some extent what it means for God to create the world. But I don't think they're meant to be just jammed together. I do think we have to just see the uniqueness in them. And one of the very first things that pops out in the uniqueness, and many scholars have pointed out along the way, some critically so, and others just as a point of observation, which is all I'm doing here, is the name of God is introduced here. This all caps Lord always refers to the divine name underneath. So in verse 4, what we actually have is Yahweh Elohim, which is the Hebrew word for God. So the Lord God, Yahweh, being the name. Sorry, the mousing is not so good today. I don't have an extra mouse to do this, but Yahweh is spelled like this typically. Sometimes Jehovah, which is really just a mispronunciation of the Y, the German Y sound, Yehovah. That's where that comes from. So Jehovah is actually a nonsense word. But that's a topic for another video as well. And here we see God creating mankind once more. The Lord God formed the man, this is the word Adam, of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living creature. And the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And then he provides for them once again. We're told about the rivers that are in that area and how it's good, and we see God's grace in every way. And he puts the man in the Garden of Eden to, here's these functional roles, right? To work it and keep it. These are really important terms. So just kind of remember those: to work it and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, you may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in that day you eat of it, you shall surely die. A really strong statement in Hebrew here. You shall surely die. Death upon death. So that's what we have here, this warning. And of course, tomorrow we'll look at Genesis 3 and we'll see what happens with that warning. But the last thing we want to talk about here is this statement in verse 18. The Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. Just as God made mankind in our image, his collective image, mankind is made for a relationship. So the Lord determines that he will make him a helper, as a companion, or fit for him, as the ESV translates it here. And he forms the beast, and we have the beast. And again, this is one of those kind of discrepancies between Genesis 1 and 2. The beasts are actually formed after the man here. But again, I think what we're talking about is the creation of the earth and the universe and humankind. It's really difficult. And remember, the Bible's not a scientific text per se. I think it witnesses to what is true in the world, but what you'll find is that the Bible is making a theological claim about the God who creates and brings into existence through the spoken word. And that's really the important takeaway. And with all of these animals, there's no one fit for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man. And while he slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib that the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman and brought her to the man. Then the man said, this is at last bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. And then we have this statement of really marriage being rooted in creation. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So again, we're made for relationship. We're made to be together. And the man and his wife were both naked. And here's just the teaser for tomorrow. They were not ashamed. That's going to be critical for understanding chapter 3. I hope you've enjoyed today. If you need the reading plan, again, you can pick up the link there and grab it. Share this with your friends. 30 days through the Bible. So by the end of December, you'll have a sense of how to fit all the pieces together because you'll have a sweeping sense of the story. I'm glad that you joined us today, and I look forward to seeing you on a future video.